Tim?
Sure. Why don't I turn it back to Robert?
Sorry about that. I just wanted to give some quick housekeeping. As you're aware, this meeting will be recorded and will be published on New York City Emergency Management website. All prior LEPC meetings can be found on NYSEM's website. There are two emergency exits. One is located immediately out the door and to the left, and the other is the exit. The other exit is the main entrance that you had come in. Also, restrooms are located outside the doors behind the orange wall. Those are all the housekeeping items I wanted to discuss, and I'll pass it back to you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Again, thank you for coming out today, and it's nice to see, like I said, a full room of all our partners here today. I'm just going to go over a brief summary of what the Local Emergency Planning Committee is. Under the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, or EPCRA, local emergency planning committees, or LEPCs, must develop an emergency response plan, review the plan at least annually, and provide information about chemicals in the community to its citizens. Plans are developed by LEPCs with stakeholder participation. The LEPC membership includes a minimum per federal regulations, elected state and local officials, police, fire, civil defense, and public health professionals, environmental, transportation, and hospital officials, facility representatives, and representatives from community groups. What compromises a community emergency response plan? The identification of facilities that store hazardous and extremely hazardous substances, the description of emergency response procedures, both on and off-site for such substances, the designation of facility and community coordinators to implement the plan, having comprehensive emergency notification procedures, establishing a method to determine the probable affected area and population in the event of a hazardous substance release, establishing a comprehensive list of equipment, personnel, and facilities that are available to respond during such a release, establishing an evacuation plan, developing training programs for personnel who will be responsible for the implementation of the plan, running drills, exercise the plan, tabletops, or boots on the ground. In New York City, the Community Right to Know law, which is Local Law 26 of 1988, requires the city to effectively regulate the storage, use, and handling of hazardous substances within the 5 boroughs. The Department of Environmental Protection's Division of Emergency Response and Technical Assessment under the Bureau of Police and Security is entrusted with this responsibility. The division, through its Right to Know program, manages the reporting and storage of hazardous substances by requiring facilities to annually report on their chemicals. The report, which is referred to as Tier 2, details the quantity, location, and chemical nature of every hazardous substance stored, used, and handled within each filing facility. To date, there are over 11,000 such facilities reporting to the DEP. The filing deadline is March 1st of each year. The Tier 2 filing is done online for annual submissions, revisions, or updates. Very few facilities still opt to submit hard copy filings, less than 10%. The information within the Tier 2 filing is carefully reviewed for personnel for accuracy and completeness. When issues are identified, the facility is contacted to make corrections. This is known as the technical review process. As a follow-up to technical reviews, division personnel conduct physical inspections of the facilities to confirm that the document submission matches with what the facility is actually using, storing, and handling. On only a few occasions do the inspectors identify inaccuracies, which once identified require the facility to submit a revision. For the facilities using materials above the thresholding reporting quantities, risk management plans need to be developed. Out of the 11,000 facilities reporting, only 300 approximately facilities fell into this category. Under the Right to Know law requirements, facilities that store and or use extremely hazardous substances or regulated toxic substances that are at or above the threshold planning quantity as listed in the chemical tables of the law are required to prepare and submit a risk management plan to the department for review, comment, and approval after an inspection of the facility is conducted without any deficiencies identified. The purpose of this plan is to protect the surrounding communities, workers, and emergency responders for the dangers associated with the hazardous substances, extremely hazardous substances, and regulated toxic substances by mitigating the harm posed by the release of such materials. In general, a risk mitigation plan includes a risk assessment analysis, a risk reduction analysis, and an emergency response plan. An annual report is published yearly and presents a detailed overview of the past year's information. Access to this annual report can be found on the DEP's website. I'll turn it back over to Robert for last year's minutes.
Thank you very much. The minutes from last year's LEPC can be found also on New York City Emergency Management's website. For this year, we're going to accept and adopt the meeting minutes that were read during the course of the previous year and hopefully streamline the numbers that are being given to make it less complex or confusing. So the 2024 LEPC meeting minutes are as follows. Opening remarks were provided by Harry Meyer, the Director for Division of Emergency Response and Technical Assessment, DERTA, and introduced their new Deputy Commissioner. The Deputy Commissioner introduced themselves and provided a brief summary of the LEPC. Quick aside, the introduction of what the LEPC is basically was covered at the beginning of this meeting and will not be outlined this portion. The 2023 LEPC minutes were adopted, and we moved on to the Hazardous Substance Advisory Board meeting. Again, the meeting minutes that were read during that portion of the meeting were also adopted. For the 2024 submission year, as of June 2024, the Right to Know program received 10,972 Tier 2 submissions. Out of the 10,970 submissions, 361 new facilities were added to the database. A total of 10,734 facilities submitted online, and 338 facilities submitted hard copy. That gave us a 98% of Tier 2 submissions were being filed online. As for the risk management plan, DEP currently had 392 plans on file. An additional 2 facilities were required to submit RMPs for that year. The Right to Know program received 46 updates to existing RMPs and 129 submitted affidavit letters indicating that there was no change in their existing plans. There were 4 RMPs under review and 2 facilities reported exceptions. As of the date of the prior LEPC meeting, 2 facilities had been inspected. The inspection unit performed a total of 5,401 inspections for the 2024 fiscal year. Of these, 43 facilities were exempt from filing, 242 facilities had gone out of business, 155 facilities were closed or no access was granted, 276 facilities were issued notices of violations for non-compliance with the law. Moving on to the emergency responses, Harry Meyer discussed the emergency responses for that year. By category, year over year, the pattern was roughly the same. Number 1 was chemical odors, followed by petroleum spills, followed by chemical spills, followed by abandoned chemicals, and the last 2 categories, natural gas leaks and lithium-ion battery fires, were considered a tie. At the time the data was run, it was a 192 versus 199. But during the past 2 days, another 4 lithium-ion battery jobs were received. And as demonstrated, the jobs are coming in faster than anything else. If we look at last year alone, there were a total of 385 responses for lithium-ion batteries. In our case, it was roughly 15% of the workload. At one point, the city was obligated not only to handle these on its own, it was also 100% the city's responsibility to handle and dispose of the batteries, which was a significant financial burden. Last year alone, even with the contract in place, the city has spent close to $500,000. The fire department is the primary response agency that handles, mitigates, controls, and extinguishes these fires. In the past, FDNY/the city was obligated to conduct the disposal irrelevant of what was going on. About a year and a half ago, FD, New York City Emergency Management, and the DEP developed a protocol whereby whenever there was a response, the agencies would work together and identify the responsible parties. Once a responsible party had been identified, a commissioner's order would be issued under Local Law 42, known as the Spill Bill. Under Chapter 6, Section 24-608A, when a commissioner of DEP has reason to believe that there has been a release or there exists a substantial threat of a release into the environment of a hazardous substance which may present an immediate and substantial danger to the public health or welfare or the environment, the Commissioner may, in their discretion, order any or all responsible persons to implement any response measures or to cooperate with and assist the Commissioner in implementing any response measures deemed by the Commissioner to be necessary to protect public health or welfare or the environment. If the Commissioner exercises their discretion, in the exercise of their discretion concludes that seeking the implementing of any such measures by a responsible person may be detrimental to public health or welfare or the environment due to the likelihood of delay or ineffectiveness of such response measures, or for any appropriate reason, the Commissioner may implement such response measures on their behalf. Simply put, when FDNY responds to a fire, they extinguish it, stabilize it, and pack it. When DEP comes in, if there is a responsible party, they can issue a Commissioner's order asking them to mitigate and absorb all costs to remediate the situation. Naturally, this is a big deal, as if there was no Commissioner order, you could add another third to this cost. You're going from $500,000 to at least $675,000 to $700,000 for battery fires. This protocol has been so successful that almost a third of these jobs have been absorbed through oversight of FDNY, New York City Emergency Management, and DEP. While there are many jobs where there are no responsible party, there are cases where there are responsible parties. One matter that was raised was that had come up was bike shops. Many times these shops have batteries that are not certified. It is basically someone in their basement taking parts, putting them together, and selling them for a cheap price. In some instances, it is not one or two bikes. In some cases, you are talking about 55-gallon drums with hundreds of batteries, enough to take down a building if they were to go up together. Local Law 42-87 was written in 1987. At the time, lithium-ion batteries did not exist. However, the wording found within the law, a threat or potential threat, is an open-ended statement. Lithium-ion batteries can produce a threat or potential threat, so the law applies. But how do you apply the fire code with a DEP code? How do you bridge that? The fire code is unique in its own way and has its specifics, the same for DEP's laws. Under section 309.3.2 of the fire code, it allows for the fire department to conduct inspection and declare something as being hazardous. The term hazardous was the key to having these two legal provisions work together. This took months to come up with, and it is simple in that its uniqueness, and that is the uniqueness of this. It is simple to the point, and it works. And it sticks, and it is helping the public and the environment. When the fire department responds, they inspect. If they find something that they deem hazardous, they use Fire Code Section 309.3.2, and it lists in their violation the number of batteries or modules, and their observation as to why it is hazardous, such as non-factory modifications, are identified. Once an order is issued, DEP is able to issue a Commissioner's order, and that forces a responsible party to secure the material, hire a licensed hazardous materials contractor, and dispose the material according to all applicable law. Recently, another law was passed, Local Law 39. This law took effect on September 16th of 2023 and prohibits the sale, lease, rental, or distribution of powered micro-mobility devices like e-bikes and scooters unless the electrical system and batteries have been certified by an accredited testing laboratory for compliance. Between Fire Code 309.3.2, our Commissioner's orders, according to Local Law 42-87, and now manufacturing batteries, and Local Law 39, we are now closing the box around those players who have been manufacturing batteries on their own that are unstable and are causing a lot of these problems. Last year, it was said that we were facing significant and insurmountable problems, but a year later, that what was insurmountable is no longer insurmountable, and now there is a mechanism to address it. Moving on to the end of the minutes for special deployments, Harry Meyer provided a list of special deployments such as the Met and Yankee Day home openers, the 5-borough bike tour, the Roadrunner, Brooklyn Half Marathon, the Israeli Day Parade, and the Puerto Rican Day Parade. If you'd like the further details of what was outlined in these minutes, those are available on New York City Emergency Management's website. Thank you very much. We'll pass it back over to DEP.
Thank you for reading the minutes. I'm going to actually turn it over to my counterparts, Joanne and Harry, for the next portion of the meeting.
Again, good morning, everyone. I'm Harry Meyer. I'm the director for DERTA, basically, Division of Emergency Response and Technical Assessment. I want to thank Robert for going through the minutes. I can promise you that we're not going to be giving you plenty of numbers because there are plenty of numbers. And we'll give you nice short summaries this time, okay? I know we have thousands upon thousands of numbers, 11,000 here, 300 there, 500 here, so many this, so many that. It's a lot. So the easiest way to do this is, like Robert said, go onto our website and you can look up these wonderfully prepared reports that have everything in detail at your leisure. So everything that was said is available online, not only on the response end, but also on the right to know end. So with that, let me look at the policies here. Under the agenda, we are actually now stepping back from the LEPC and initiating the Hazardous Substance Advisory Board. So we do it both simultaneously, like it has been over the past years. So for today's HSAB meeting, first I want to begin by thanking all of the members on the Hazardous Substance Advisory Board that have participated over the years from the various agencies. Again, we are open to more members. We look, the more the merrier. It's an important committee. We do discuss items just not only on right to know, but emergency response, various laws, different applications, just like Robert said, when it came to lithium-ion, we have Vincent, we talk about lithium-ion batteries all the time, besides, all of our normal responses, but Vincent's been on this team with us for over 20 years, so I'm not going to say how long I've been around, we're just going to say 20-some years. And let me just say this. I'm going to start the meeting, but I have to first approve the meeting from March 13th. That was the last meeting where the HSAB convened. At that time, Commissioner Moss was in attendance, myself, Joanne, one of our administrative personnel, Noreen, and Kevin from OEM. Now, the HSAB has various members. We have members from NYPD, we have FDNY, we have DSNY, we have the Corrections Department, we have the Health Department, we have members from, of course, OEM. We've had members from, in the past, from state agencies who will participate. I know we discuss things not officially, but we have Con Edison, we have the utilities. We always have, during responses, we do meet and discuss ideas. But if you want to become a member, by all means, we welcome membership into the HSAB. So it's not really that much. It meets every quarter. So maybe 5 meetings a year, and this is one of the 5. So let me just run down the minutes from March 13th and then move forward to the day. We had the general introduction of everyone. We went through the right to know metrics. The Deputy Director Nurse went through all the numbers. I'm not going to go through them because they're very, as I said, I promised I won't go through lots of numbers. All I could just say is, at that time, we were talking under the right to know law, 3,358 submissions, and we'll leave it at that. So we always say up to 11,000 or more. And this year, you'll see that we will reach that. So it's anywhere between 10,000 and change to 11,000 facilities that report to us on a yearly basis. I'm not going to go through how many, were online or so. All I could say is we did have new facilities from for this year. Another 154 new facilities filed. The inspection numbers at the time were at 3,429. At the time also, we had 396 notices of violation. So, as Robert said, the law does have its ability to make facilities comply. Now, we are very understanding. We do not just issue violations because we feel like it. We contact facilities, and we give them 30 days after March 1st. We try to figure out how we can work with them, because many facilities are overwhelmed with the law. They don't know what to do, how to do it. It seems like a difficult task, but when that happens, we are more than willing to walk them through it step by step. But there are those facilities who just don't want to cooperate. So at that point, we have no choice but to issue notices of violation, and then they have to go to the oath hearing where a decision is made. And once it's adjudicated, even if they do pay the penalty, it does not exempt you from filing. We still come after you. You still must file. Now, what is the importance of this file? What is this Tier 2 facility inventory form? From an emergency response point of view, responders are going to a scene, whatever the scene is. Worst case of fire, you're walking into a building. You want to know what's there. You want to know where it is, what it is, and how much of it is there. That's what Tier 2 is, basically, a database. Now, our partners in emergency response have access. FD, PD, et cetera, do have access to Tier 2. They need to have access to Tier 2. Just like I said, you don't know what you're walking into. That's why for us, Tier 2 is very, very important to be up to date, and we must make sure that our inspectors go out and verify what the facility puts in writing is actually what's there. Now, people might say, oh, people try to underestimate, underreport, etc. It's possible. But we're not there to worry about, the underreporting fee. It's not the fee. The importance is that the data must be accurate because people's lives are at risk. And when the response agencies walk in, we want to make sure that they know exactly what they're walking in on. I mean, not only for us, but for every other response partner that we have. So that's why we take great effort in making sure this Tier 2 database is up to date, verified, and complete as possible. So that's Tier 2. Emergency response. Well, like I've always said, year over year, it's anywhere between 3,200 to 3,500 responses that DERTA goes to. Naturally, we go out with our agency partners, and we also have our own set of responses that we deal with. Year over year, that has been the number, 32 to 3,500. And of course, with lithium-ion battery fires and cleanups, it's the same thing. It's the same percentage year over year. And I'm just looking at one year over the other to give you an idea. Lithium-ion batteries on their own average close to 400 per year now. Last year we said around 300. Well, they're about 400 now. So they're creeping up slowly. Some, we said 15%, now we're around 20 to 25% year over year. So it's just the nature of the problem.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So at correction, our headquarters is not necessarily in the most ideal location for public transportation. It's the full of the building out in East Elmhurst, not too far from LaGuardia. We have I wouldn't say necessarily significant, not a majorly significant number of people, but enough people that do utilize bikes, and some use lithium-ion battery bikes to commute to work. Are there policies in place, and I don't know what agency would be responsible for this, whether you, fire, DCAS, whoever, for a policy in place in terms of the distance of those bikes when they're, hooked up to whatever stanchion outside the office, the same way that, you have smoking laws, right, where you can't smoke within X amount of feet of the building. It's for safety purposes with regards to the batteries. Is there something in place for that?
As far as I know, not yet. But I know, Vince, there is talk of new laws coming out. So we're still working on that. Actually, there's a proposal, there's still a legislative proposal on the table where safe storage, if you want to call it that, is being discussed. So the answer to your question is not yet, but hopefully, once new legislation comes in and a partnership, I mean, FD and DEP, of course, we have a good working relationship. We'll hopefully get to some sort of an agreement, what is safe. But all I'll tell you is now, and I could say this unofficially, I'm sure Vince would agree, as far as away from the building as you could put it. That's all I could tell you for now.
So to that point, the bulk of the building itself is a publicly accessible building
Yes,
too.
I know,
and then-
yeah.
And then at whatever point when the agency transitions to borough-based jails, it will also, sections of it will also be publicly available as well, inside the actual facility. And so, for instance, at Atlantic Avenue, not too far from here, there will be a jail built on the existing footprint of the previous Brooklyn jail, and then there'll be a carve-out for a community center or some other commercial location, as well as a sort of pedestrian area where people can come and go in a common space. It's just similar to the way Four World Trade Center has, where you can walk and you don't have to go into the offices, but you can still access the lobby area. So we're just thinking about that, long-term as well, and also any bike stanchions outside a facility like that where the sidewalks are, we're in a more dense area for those types of facilities in the future, rather than on Rikers Island where everything is spread out. So in terms of any sort of policy that could address that as well would be helpful.
Good point. I mean, you bring up a very good point. And like I said, hopefully the legislation that's on the table at the moment will allow FE and DEP to work together and to come up with some of these rules. Because this is a difficult question. You have a facility that is not only dedicated for one purpose, but it also has public access.
And it's unprecedented too for a jail to have a publicly accessible area, presents other concerns, security, et cetera. But this is one of them from a safety standpoint.
Significant. I mean, you have like I said, at the moment, unofficially, all we could say is you put it as far away as you can. But when if and assuming this legislation is approved and it takes effect, we're gonna have to sit down, and I'm pretty sure FD and DEP, once we sit down together, will bring in concerned parties, so we can look at this, because we're both, bottom line is, it's ourselves, PD, and FD, we're the ones who get stuck trying to deal with these. FD has the responsibility of going in, their life safety, they need to get this thing packaged, secured, and ready. PD has their responsibility also for public safety. DEP has the responsibility of making sure this stuff disappears safely and gets disposed of. Now, every case is unique. I mean, you could have a fire, in let's say a FedEx facility. It's a big warehouse. There's one way to control it. But, every situation will be, you're gonna have warehouse situations, you're gonna have residential situations, you're gonna have, general park situations. So all of these other partner agencies will have to sit down, and we will sit down with them. Same way we came up with the policy on how to handle these batteries, now 2.5 years ago. And this one is a very good point, Hubert. I mean, we haven't really thought about it, but we will. And assuming this legislation is passed, you can be guaranteed we'll be reaching out to you to sit down.
Please, thank you.
Appreciate it. No, thank you, sir. So, one good point. As we said, the problem was insurmountable, but we came up with a solution. So now we have another thing to address, which is fine. I mean, that's how the operation runs. So, okay. As I said, response year over year. I touched on lithium-ion batteries. I think everyone has heard enough about lithium-ion batteries. We know what they are. They're a problem. We're making headway. I know, FD has been, their teams of, their fire marshals, their hazmat teams have gone in. I know PD has also done inspections of bike shops. We've seen the mishmash of, the person taking things apart, soldering it together, putting them in a box and saying it's brand new, when it's really the guy's battery that was defective, that he brought in, and they take it apart. So they've been going in, they've been investigating, inspecting, packing, and we've been working on bike shops. Hopefully, in the future, there'll be new legislation that takes effect, either federal or state or local or a combination of both, where these batteries have to be UL laboratory listed or some sort of other certified laboratory listing. The local law 39 that FD has in effect, which makes it necessary to have a comparable charging system with the batteries, also a very critical component that helps avoid fires. I mean, more importantly, not in, let's say, an open area, but in residential where people bring their bikes upstairs and at home. At least this way it helps control it, because people, you know, nobody wants to spend the $400 for a battery. And you know, you could go, and I'm not gonna say which website, I know they've been working on different websites trying to clean those up, but, you know, buying something for $60, and it's the same thing. Well, they're not. You can't put item A and item B. A charger and a battery that are mismatched don't work. And unfortunately, we have seen what happens when things go wrong, and I'm not the expert on this, but I've read the data, and I know FD has the database that's much more robust than ours, but we've seen the numbers of fires and fatalities just from those types of situations. So hopefully local law 39 comes in also and pushes that forward and reduces these situations in the future, present and future. And like I said, with other legislation on the table, hopefully this lithium-ion problem will find its way and not disappear, but be better controlled. And that's what we're working on. Since we brought up lithium-ion batteries, we're gonna just throw in a little monkey wrench into the pie. This is something new. We haven't discussed it yet. We're working with OEM and FD and PD and the other agencies. I know this sounds ridiculous, but it is actually real. Can you imagine someone actually taking an electric vehicle battery out of their car and leaving it on the street? A thing that is as big as half of this table. I mean, 4 tables together on the sidewalk. Imagine someone leaving one of those. FD has seen it. We have seen it. That's our next problem to address. So forget about little 25 and 45 pound or 50 pound, batteries. I mean, when I get a drum that has 200 pounds worth of batteries, I complain about the cost. These things are 500 pounds to 2,000 pounds on their own. So that's another nuance that's been thrown into the lithium-ion world. So we're dealing with that, and I know OEM is spearheading the task force, so you'll be hearing about that soon enough. Maybe next year, maybe the year after. But that's another item on the agenda. So with that, again, as I said, response numbers are the same. I've touched upon lithium-ion. The special details, well, we've had the same special details. I'll just make them short. We've had the baseball games. We've had the half marathons. We've had the parades. We've had the various bicycle, what they call it, the bike tours, the 5-bar bike tours. And now as we go on, we're going to have, of course, the Pride March. We will have July 4th. And for those of you who don't know, the July 4th celebration has been moved to the east side with the barges somewhere near the Brooklyn Bridge. Okay, that's all I know. I don't know the details of where the response plans are going to be yet, but, you know, if you're planning to go out, that's where you have to be. After that, naturally, we have our U.S. Open, the UN General Assembly, and, of course, forward. But I'm not going to go that far. We'll just leave it at July 4th and the Pride March for now. So with that, that should be the 8SAP summary, okay? So I will close the 8SAP summary, and I'm going to hand over to Joanne to go over metrics now for the Right to Know program. Joanne?
Thank you, Harry. Good morning again. And I'll just give you a brief summary of the metrics for our current Tier 2 submission year, 2025. So as of June 6th, we received 11,074 submissions. 286 new facilities were added to our database. And most of these facilities we've seen a number of the Board of Ed. They're now registering their schools with us to report their chemicals. 10,919 facilities submitted online and 165 facilities submitted hard copies. So year over year, we are seeing a decrease in the hard copy submissions, which is really good, the direction that we really want to go in. We have 383 risk management plans on file, 111 updates to these existing plans were received, and 69 affidavit letters indicating that there were no change to the existing plans. We have 2 new associate chemists that have joined the team and started to review some of the plans. In regards to our regular facility inspections, so far this fiscal year, we did a total of 5,101 inspections. 39 of these facilities were exempt from filing, 285 facilities went out of business, and 972 facilities were closed or we couldn't gain access to these facilities. We issued 477 violations to facilities that have not complied with directional law regulations. So that's a summary of our metrics thus far this calendar year.
Thank you, Joanne. Okay, so I'm going to talk about, like we always do, the last item on the agenda. Noteworthy emergency responses or any new updates. So no more talk about batteries. I think we've had enough of batteries. What I'm going to talk about is something that generates all those numbers, the Community Right to Know Law. And this is it, of 1988, Local Law 26. I know some of you can't wait to read this entire document. It's fascinating, has a lot of good stuff in it, so.
Pictures?
There are pictures too, I guarantee you, and plenty of tables, plenty of tables. All right, now, this was written in 1988, or passed in 1988, it actually was developed in 1987. Now, I was around at that time. I know you'd say, it can't be, he's too young. Yeah, right, okay, fine, you or me. Okay, but this was actually there in 1988, and I remember the very first director of the Right to Know program, before this program moved into the hazmat division. Now it's under us. For 37 years, this program, the Right to Know law, has been successful in managing how chemical facilities report, how the information is reported to the response partners. So after 37 years, we've now looked at this law very carefully. And we spent, I would say, over 2 years now, revising this law, amending it, changing terms, making it more compliant, taking into consideration federal regulations, updates, changes to chemical lists. And I know this sounds a little crazy, but the reality is there are close to 5,000 chemicals listed on these tables. Of these 5,000, mind you, one of our employees who is no longer here, they retired, and it wasn't because we made them look at the 5,000 chemicals. They went through it by hand, one by one. Now, for those of you who are not chemists, I'm just going to say it this way. Chemicals have a very interesting thing. They have what they call an IUPAC name, which is its chemical name. They all have chemical abstract numbers, CAS numbers. They also have trade names. And they have what we will call confidential names. So there are names on top of more names. One chemical could have 10 different names and it's the same thing. And different people, different entities, federal, state, or local, may refer to it in a different way, but it's the same thing. We had to go through this, and we went through it. And we are now at the final stage of comparing all of these tables together. Hopefully, by the end of this year, you will see a notification in the city records for a comment period to update Local Law 26 of 1988, which will become Revision Local Law 26 of 2026. And that will be, I guess, the final part for this division. If this lasted 37 years, we hope the next one will last another 40 years. And at that point, some other director or deputy director can revise this. But for now, this law works well, but it needs a little adjustment. Some chemicals that are here don't longer really apply in New York City. One of the biggest things that this law has involved, or list of chemicals that are involved, had to do with electroplating. I don't remember if you could think. Some of you have been around. Do you remember how many electroplaters were in New York City at one time? Now, if I say how many electroplaters, you say, what's an electroplater? Well, that's what this law did. There were some industries that were focused on because what they used were really bad. Some of these chemicals are really bad. If you look at them, I mean, out of 5,000 or so, some are things you do not want to be exposed to, nor do you want them released or into the environment, or you don't want them for public exposure. Your side effects are just terrible. Well, a lot of these facilities that had these, they're no longer here. They left because the rules were very stringent. And it's not that the rules are stringent. They're there to protect the public and the environment, as well as to make sure that the emergency responders are also protected as well. So we may be adding new definitions to match federal guidelines. And just keep in mind, this law, if you read it carefully, may be more strict than federal guidelines. And according to the rules, the city could be more strict, but never less strict. So if we're more strict, it's for everyone's safety in New York City. So as I said, we can look forward to the new and improved community right to know law, hopefully in 2026. So that basically gives the update for the LEPC from my end. Sure.
You mentioned facilities. How do you define facilities? Or do you factor in Connex containers or trailers, or what is defined as, or storage bins? Like, what's defined as facility?
Facility is anything that stores, uses, or handles a chemical. That's a nice broad statement. You have a Connex sea container, you have chemicals in there, you move them in and out, guess what? You're a facility. I want to know where that stuff is. So you have a building, but yet you have an external. That's still part of your building. I mean, I've had arguments, and Joanne will tell you, oh, no, that's not part of the facility. It's not built in. Well, do you have someone that walks from one facility to that thing? Yes. Or does it just go on its own? No, someone gets it. Congratulations, it's part of your facility. You got to report it. Because of one reason, not to be a pain. It's not to be a pain. Because how about if there's a response and we don't know what's in it and this thing is right there next to you? We need to know. That's all it is. Just tell us what you store, how much you store, where you store it. And even if you use it, I mean, and we've had this argument. This is the best argument. But I use so much every time I do my operation. I started at 10 pounds, but I only use 2. And then I add half, but then I add a quarter. But it's not really 10, it's now 6. And you'd be surprised what these facilities try. And Joanne, her team, myself, we're very patient. You see, as an engineer, just to give you a simple thing. You start off with 10, you end up with 10. It doesn't disappear. So I don't care if you started off with 10 pounds of A, and it turns out to be 6 pounds of B and 4 pounds of C. Well, 6 and 4 is 10, and A is 10. Congratulations, 10 equals 10. And we've had this argument. Some facilities are so cute, if I want to say it that way, trying to say, but why should I have to report it? It's not, there are those facilities, and of course, as part of the revision, the risk management plans will come in. Can you imagine a facility calculating within a pound of the limit, 1 pound less than the threshold for a risk management plan? Imagine that. They submit a plan. It's 1 pound less. Imagine that, how cute you want to be. You send that in, it's 1 pound less. I say, okay, so you can guarantee me that in 1 year, you're not going to exceed that 1 pound. No. 100% sure. Okay. Okay. Now, I think the department has been around long enough. Everyone working here has been long enough that we're not going to be born yesterday and not believe that. Of course we'll believe you. We'll believe you that 1 pound or half a pound is never going to be exceeded. All that to avoid a risk management plan. Why? You know you're going to exceed. The only reason you don't want to do this is because it puts you in a different realm. When we have a risk management plan, it's more comprehensive. I know you're storing stuff, that's bad. I need to know how much of it, and I now need to know if, God forbid, something goes wrong in your facility, the circumference of impact. Is it a quarter mile, half mile, 1 mile? I mean, you know you have this stuff. Let's be honest. I'm not gonna let it slide. And the worst part is, when you play that, guess what? We send inspectors over, and we count. We literally will count. And as Joanne, we'll create a spreadsheet, room by room. If it's bench by bench, and we will add it up again. And I can guarantee you, when we do that, you will exceed the RMP. And you need to do that. Reality is, if you're in a business where you use these things and you exceed the threshold, and you know that there could be a release, let's do the right thing. Do the reporting, do the analysis, submit the plan. Have that plan available to us, to FD, to PD, to the emergency partners, because we're walking into this. You're gonna walk away. You're gonna stand back when there's a problem and say, okay, this is your problem, you take care of it. No, it's everyone's problem. And that's why the department takes this law, the risk management law, and of course, for the response end, which is what we have here, that we use, which we call the spillable or local law 42. That's where we give orders. And this one also has a list of chemicals besides. And in fact, this has a list that not only is included here, but it also has things where, how would I say it? Have you ever seen, I know you may not, but there are things. You ever see something like a polymer A? You see a drum says A, and then the other one says B. You know, it just says A and B, right? And I say to you, it's A and B. But for people who are in the industry and they say A and B, they know what A and B is. A and B is not good. You put A and B and you get C. C is, you know, the joke was A and B is methyl ethyl det. That's C. So we know about it. But, you know, if for example, if you look at the rules here, or you look at the law, you're not going to see A. There's no A listed. It's going to have its chemical name. But for those in the business who do this on a daily basis, they know what A is, and they know its chemical name. And some people have A. Some people store B. And some people, unfortunately, have A and B. Well, when you have stuff like that, we need to know where, how much, and what your plans are. So this is really what the LEPC is. It's to work together as a community to respond to such incidents. And it's not only our end. We have to keep in mind that if, God forbid, there is a situation, the hospital system is also impacted. They're going to have patients. They need to know. They need to coordinate. It's a very complex thing, just like the Commissioner said, from response partners, utility partners. I mean, we've done drills with Con Edison. They have their hazmat team. There are things they can do we can't. We rely on them. FD, PD, OEM, health. It's a team effort, and that's what this is. And like I said, that's why I said earlier, for the Hazardous Substance Board, you're all welcome to participate. Because in the end, when something goes wrong, everyone in this room needs to know everyone else. We can't meet for the first time in the field. We need to be able to coordinate and know each other. Like I know many faces here and some of them know me. But there are new faces here and you're welcome. You know, we welcome having you here. And we'd like to see you here, not only under the LEPC, but maybe under the HSAP, so that we have this working relationship. And that's it. I mean, that's all I could say. And I thank you all for listening to me and, you know, and listening to the presentation. And I now hand over to Deputy Commissioner Marks.
Thank you, everybody. I just want to first, I know I'm what stands between you and lunch, so I'll be real quick. I want to thank Robert and rest of NICOM for putting this together. I know Harry said we weren't going to throw numbers at you and kill you death by numbers, and then we proceeded to do that for half an hour. But I think the main takeaway is exactly what Harry just said. A lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new faces, a lot of organizations represented here. We can't do this without everybody that's in this room So please reach out if you have any questions. The lithium ions, obviously, it was great to hear from corrections. A lot of things that we haven't thought of, so please reach out to us. We're all here to help each other, again, in the office before we have to meet in the field. With that, I'll turn it over. I don't know if Robert has anything closing.
No, just again, thank you very much, everyone, for coming out today and participating in this year's LEPC. With that, if there are any questions, we're more than happy to take them now. If not, we can close the meeting and grab lunch. All right, I think with that, we can close the meeting. So thank you very much, everyone.
Or to talk to us.
Yeah.